Thank you so much for tuning in to Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. I am your host, Christian D. Evans. And guys, man, I am so pumped up, so excited to have this Aussie on our podcast. Guys, this is an incredible guy. He's just fantastic in public speaking, sales, his background, what he's been able to scale. Over the last 30 years, he's been in sales and business, experiencing from small to large companies across many, many industries. He's thrown in being involved in charity boards, raising money through Rotary Internationally, and being an experienced MC and public speaking coach. He loves to give back without expectation. And that's why it's so awesome and a privilege to have him on today. He also loves helping people to find who they really are and just be themselves. Sales is just a process, but he also gets in our way. An old boss once told him, "You like to walk past the issue. Throw a hand grenade into the middle and just keep walking." Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Rob Elliott. How are you doing, my man?
Man, I am absolutely fantastic and good to actually come across a podcast host with so much great energy. It's awesome, mate.
I am excited because obviously you have just so much experience. I was watching a lot of your YouTube content, your other podcasts and stuff like that, your experience. And I just appreciate you just being on here and adding value. And so let's just dive into a little bit of your 30 years of experience. We were just talking a little bit about the impact it has and obviously kind of where you're going and how you're able to help other businesses establish and focus on that. So I'd love to get you kind of a little quick background about you, bud.
Mate, I've grown up in Sydney all my life. My parents owned and ran pubs, as you would call them, bars over there. And I was only a little fella. And back in those days, you lived in the pub. And so I got to learn and watch without realizing what the hell was going on. Two different people, one quiet and soft, one straight to the point. And when you're selling in a pub industry, when people are drinking sometimes too much, they're stressed, they're this, they're that, you learn very quickly the art of empathy. You learn how to read people and you learn how to make one person, when they walk into a crowded bar, feel as though they are the center of your attention. And so I love doing that. I got out of that, went into commercial sales in the liquor industry as well, done the real estate thing, done wholesaling, then moved into industrial sales. Now that's pretty tough. Started walking, door knocking, as they call it, hunting, getting abused every second call, all that type of thing. Because you're just walking into people's businesses. They don't want to be annoyed. But I was on base plus commission, as we call it in Australia. I lasted 6 months and they took me out of that because I was making too much money and put me onto the normal sales job. And then I ended up being a sales manager. I love doing public speaking. I was being taught by some of the best business leaders and politicians in our country, watched and learned from their art, learned from their mistakes, saw how they didn't care when they made a mistake, just got onto it, plowed through. Walked onto a stage. I've emceed a live event of 5,000 people, and there's nothing better than no script, no safety net, and a crowd that you don't know what they're going to do. It's oxygen to me. And I love helping people. Sales is about confidence. Sales is about being able to walk and talk to anybody. And most people don't realize they actually do it every day of the week. Getting a hold of a manager and just wanting to shake them, going, "What are you doing?" Because you don't understand the guys that are making you the money, and then doing as much charity work as my wife and I can find the time to do. So that's the very, very quick thing of what we do. But we just enjoy life, and that's the most important thing anyone can do for them and their family.
Well, that's awesome, man. And I know you were talking just about, obviously during when you were in the pub, really gathering that instinct, if you will, of empathy, of how to talk to someone, to read the crowd, if you will. And I'm curious, obviously these are skills that are innate, but also that you learned and developed. And I'm curious, now that you've been able to be obviously very successful in what you've been able to establish and stuff like that, how have you found, because the people that we talk to, they're already kind of developed some sort of sales, right? They've obviously developed it, dialed in, but obviously you can always really dial it in even 1, 2, 3, 4% more and really, really scale your life to the next level. And so my question really comes down to, what did you do during those 30 years to constantly be learning, developing, and being able to be in a situation where you're able to ad lib basically an MC event of 5,000 people and just be able to be creative and very confident? Well, what did that transgression look like, if you will?
A lot of mistakes. Let's be honest. I tell people when they're looking I do sales and business coaching, when they're looking for a coach, you don't want one that says, "I'm the best at this. I've never made a mistake. I've made millions of dollars." Man, if you're making millions of dollars, what are you doing this job for? Really? You want someone who's honestly made mistakes and learned from them. You want someone that's tried, failed, got up and done it again. I've done it. There's not many in sales. I don't think there's a mistake I haven't made. I'd love people to make their own and not make the ones I have. When it comes to public speaking, it is all very similar, sales and public speaking. It's a confidence thing. It's how you look on the outside. So I say to everyone, the first rule is you are the first page of your own book. And it doesn't matter what level manager or leader you are. When you walk in a room, people judge you. And I don't mean judge in a bad way. They look at how you walk in the room, how you talk, who you interact with, how you're dressed, all little things. And within 30 seconds, they've made their mind up with that boss or that guy over there or that lady over there is the real deal or a fake. And that's the truth. When it comes to learning about how to read people and that, I had to duck a few times in the pub when I'd read someone the wrong way. After they'd have a couple of beers and you'd make a comment. And the old youthful mouth, as you call it, gets us all into trouble. Some of us got into trouble with the ladies at times, and then other times trying to get a drunk out of the pub. The best thing I learned was to listen and watch. But you listen by what words they use. You listen to how they're speaking, the speed they're speaking. You listen with your eyes. And people say to me, huh? People, when they go into a room, listening with their eyes is another way of calling body language. You watch a very, very well-trained leader, especially say the politicians, the presidents, the prime ministers, when they show them on television walking into a room, they will scan from one side to the other. They will look around and see who's in the room, who's having an animated conversation, and who's relaxed, and who engages with them as soon as they walk in. The most important thing anyone can do in sales, in management, or in leadership, and remember I said leadership and management is two different things, is you must learn the art of active listening, of being 100% what we call present with your person who is talking to you. And it can be in a crowd. You can be on stage. And the art of looking into and looking at that person who may be asking you a question and making them think that you're only focusing on them, but you're really focusing on the 10 people all the way around them as well at the same time. So you've just got to listen. It breaks us all down. And anyone who goes back and looks at every time they've made a mistake and where they've listened to respond, in other words, they've made their mind up what they're going to say before the person says it. If they're truly honest with themselves, that deal they lost or that person they lost because they didn't take the time to stop, take a breath, and just see where they were going.
Definitely. And because, just like you were saying, I think, sales is an intangible gift, intangible skill that you can acquire that nobody can, take away from you. Someone can take your money, someone can take your house, someone can take your freedoms, but they'll never be able to take those skills away. And that's, and like you were just saying, that 1 to 2, 3% difference by being able to talk to someone, have empathy, but also really being able to mirror someone and having that conversation and leading that conversation. Now, my question as well is, definitely as salespeople, we tend to come off very cocky or very arrogant because we're very confident, right?
Yes.
And so how do you portray a humility confidence where you're able to come in and, like you said, listen and actually stop talking and be able to lead the conversation? What does that look like for you?
Look, in everyone it's different because there's so many different versions of people. The best thing I can say is first is your body language. You have to be open, you have to be relaxed. If you walk in and someone starts talking to you and you cross your arms, or you look up, you look left, you look right, you don't give eye contact, the person on the other side will think you're an arrogant so-and-so. I won't use the Australian term, but your subconscious is what picks you up. I mean, you're 95% subconscious, 5% conscious. Now, if your stomach, as you call it, we call it a gut feeling, it is right 90% of the time. And that is the energy that you put off. So if I'm standing in front of you and I'm putting I'm better than you, I'm thinking that, your body will pick up on that energy and you'll go, hang on a minute, there's something wrong about this guy. So if you think that, the person who you're talking to will know that. They may not say it, they may be polite, but they'll know it. The second thing is how you turn and you talk. if you talk or interrupt somebody, especially if they're what we call a process person or a straight talker, they'll push back. They'll take a step back, they'll lean back because you're interrupting their flow, you're challenging their authority. Remember, in sales, you must have, your customer must think they're in charge. That is the art. If they think they're in charge, they're going to be happy. If you can ask them positive reinforcement questions, they're going to be happy because people love to say yes, and people love to deal with people who are happy. They don't have to like you. They just have to respect you. And so when you're talking about arrogance versus confidence, there is a fine line. You've got to learn that line of being confident in what you're doing and portraying that confidence so they get confidence in you. But arrogance is elitist, is people, can come across that way. And it all comes from their belief that they believe they know more than that person. And that's what they're portraying. And you've got to just practice it and just be humble. Take a breath, acknowledge your customer and say, man, that's a great idea. I think I can help you. Rather than, man, I've got the exact product for you. If you go and do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Totally different way.
Well, see, what I find very interesting is earlier on, many years ago, when I was driving for Uber, I actually did a test, a kind of analysis of my own self. The people that I would talk to, that I would get them to laugh or joke or something like that, I would get a better tip with.
100%.
And then those that I had no communication with, I did not. And it was very, very interesting because obviously you build a relationship, you have them, and then they walk away and they build oh, wow, that guy was amazing, blah, blah, blah. And I just noticed my tip ratio went up just by engaging, have a conversation, laughing with them. And so, let's dive into a little bit of the strategic way of doing it, because as salespeople, in order to be an expert at it, you have to anticipate what's going to happen throughout that sale, right? At the end of the day, you want the close because it is your job to get them to take action on whatever service, whatever product, whatever that is. So what questions that are strategic do you put in on the front end to make sure that you don't, you don't fall into the overcoming objections and spend a whole year overcoming objections on the front end? You want to ask certain questions that be able to overcome that on the back end. So I'd love to talk a little about that.
First rule of sales is never ask a question that you don't like the answer to. And ask as many questions that you already know the answer to. So the thing is, you don't ask a question that's going to come over with a negative answer. Are my prices too dear? Every time, irrespective if they are or not, they're going to say yes. You need to move your customer through. We always call them open questions. Always ask an open question. Nothing that can be answered yes or no, until right at the end where you're doing positive reinforcement of what you're doing. And the biggest thing out of that is never ask why. If you're in an Uber, how's your day going today, mate? Not too good. Why is that? Oh no, bang, crash. You're over. Because why moves people to what they call justification mode, not to facts. Ask your kids why, and they'll tell you why they didn't make their bed. Oh, I'm too busy, mum. Oh, you got me up too late. But if you don't ask them why, say, well, how did you come to that decision? Where did you get that thought from? Nice open questions, and let them explain by the facts. All of a sudden, their mood will change. If you're dealing with somebody who is having a good day, you just say, bounce the energy back. We as you said before, mirror. So if someone's having a good day, man, you're having a great day. And they'll go, yeah, anything special happened today? And it doesn't matter if you're doing a sales call, and let them talk. Especially a person of high energy. Let them talk. You're on for the ride. You cannot interrupt them. If it's a serious person, some nationalities, when it comes to business, are serious by our standards, yours and my standards. They're there for business, their process. That is all they're there for. Those type of people, you've got to just acknowledge them all the time. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, I see where you're coming from. Pay them respect. And all of a sudden, that breaks them down. If you challenge them, you're gone. You just learn, and then you ask like a probing question, as we call it. Why is, you just turn around and if you turn around and say, why is that really important to you? Where you never ask, why did someone do it? But why is that really important to you? It shows that you're paying attention, and you let them talk. And then if they tell you 4 things, you repeat the 4 things back to them. Because that in their mind, you've acknowledged, you've listened, and you're paying attention, and you're not challenging their opinion. And then there are some people that you just can't. You've just got to play the straight bat, go straight into just business, because that's who their personality is. And if you come over like you and I are, full of energy, they can't handle that. So you sometimes just dial yourself back and practice. Practice on relatives. They're the harshest cricketing. They're the people and your mates. They're not going to give you any free hits.
Right. Well, see, that's interesting because, like you say, you ask 2 or 3 why questions, and specifically, and like, okay, why are you facing this in your business, and why do you want to accomplish a $20,000 a month business? Why is that? Well, because I want to do this. No, explain. And then you ask them a little bit more. Well, why? Well, because I want to spend more time with my kids. Oh, why is that? Well, because I want to take my kids to Disneyland and my wife to this, and so it's really that's the reason why you really want to. That's awesome. So if I was able to help you get to that in 6 months, would you take action, right? Or something like that, and I always love those kind of questions. Go ahead.
Yeah, look, I think what you're saying is right. It is an art. It does take practice. It's, if you're LeBron James, if you're Federer, if you're Ronaldo, do those guys get where they got? Tony Robbins, even your presidents, do they get where they got by not practicing what they're doing and practicing their skill? Salespeople get lazy. They think they know it all. And that's the truth. Managers, senior managers, leaders get lazy. No one ever achieves anything without practicing. No one ever. Tom Brady used to go out and kick balls when he was a number 3 pick for quarterback after the end of the game. He didn't get to be where he is without doing practice. And the same as ours. You practice your questions. Crash and burn a few times. Who cares? Practice on the barmaid, the barman. Who cares? Until you hone your questions where they become what we call unconscious competence, which is without even thinking. You're asking the questions. Practice. I'll tell you what, I've done it before in my head and asked people before going into a major pitch. Practice the questions. I turn around and say, ask me anything. Ask me questions on this, this, and this, and practice your answers back. And they'll say, well, now, why did you frame it this way? Why did you frame it that way? Same answer, different ways of framing depending on the situation. And there are times when you've got to move it to clarification, and that's right at the end. And the best thing someone can turn around and say, is there anything I haven't covered today? Is there anything you need me to provide more information on? And you watch their body, watch their language, watch their eyes. And if they're truly engaged, they'll ask and they'll tell you.
Well, see, that's what I always find interesting, because also coming back to your point here, majority of people definitely, if you have a conversation and you build a rapport, at the end of the day, people say, yes, I love what you have to offer. I love it. But also at the end of the day, what does it always come down to? Money, right? It's about resources, right? Oh, if I could afford it, I'd buy it, right? And so my question for you, right? Because that's 90% of salespeople is we got to overcome the money objection. It's going to be a problem. It's going to be a situation. Not all the time if you're talking to high quality leads, but at the end of the day, it's 15K. So let's talk a little bit about that. How do you posture the money, and how is it more of an assumptive close, or is it, hey, it's $15.99.97 right now, and let's get you signed up? Like, how do you posture it to make sure that it doesn't totally sticker shock, but also give them enough value on the front end? What does that look like in that process?
First thing is, you've got to believe in the value of the product you're offering. You've got to believe that at $1,599, it's great value. If you don't believe it, you can't sell it. Secondly, if you look at any of the big companies who have done a survey on price is normally ranked 3, 4, or 5, never ranked 1 or 2. Because what you need to do is solve their problem. You find out what their problem is. Your product then is tell them how you've solved the problem using stories or using facts or using data, depending on the type of person you're with. If you solve their problem, and you make their day, they don't care about the price, because what's the price? And I've asked this. So everything I've given you solves your problem. Yeah. Yeah. And that's how they spoke to me. And I went, so all of this is going to help you immensely. Yes. It's going to save you a heap of time and wages. Yes. 3 yeses. You're moving them. So you can actually turn around and say, well, then I've saved you a lot of money. I'm going to save you a lot more money in wages. You're going to be happy. Let's move forward. I never asked them to buy. I never asked them about price. And 9 times out of 10, they'll move forward. And if they say no, you can say, well, what's the cost of not fixing this to your company?
Oh.
Now, that is a direct question, and it puts them on notice. And they look at you. And if you've sold and put that value in for fixing their solution and becoming their solution, they've got nothing. But my personal belief is I've never sold anything to anyone that I didn't believe they needed it. I've told people don't buy something, I said, because that's not the right fit for you. You have to be honest with yourself, because it will come back to bite you. You know, there's 2 types of sales. There's relationship sales and there's used car sales. Everyone knows if they've been sold a lemon, and they tell everybody. And you don't want to be the reputation of the guy that can sell anything, but only sell it once. Your most important sale is your second sale of that customer, not the first. So
wow, this is brilliant stuff. This is brilliant stuff, because you're exactly right. Because I think so many, definitely business owners, and I think my audience really resonates with this, is you think linear. Okay, we focus too much on the sale on the front end instead of saying, hey, you know what, bring them the fulfillment, bring such incredible value. Sure, it may be $5,000 item, but guess what? If you help them make another $20,000, $40,000, $100,000 to their bottom line, well, shoot, 5,000 is irrelevant. And like you said, go after the pain. Well, hey, Mr. and Mr. Jones, if you don't take action, well, you just told me that you're losing $4,000 a month. So you multiply that by 12, that's a ton of money. Yes or no, right?
Yes.
So what's really holding you back, right? And then asking that question. So also, Robert, let me ask you this, how has sales been able to help you in the business world, just, or even, life in general, on a, relational aspect, and also being able to lead a conversation and lead people through to a destination, right? Obviously emceeing, 5,000 people, that takes, you have to have energy. You have to be bringing these people through a process, engaging them. So what does that look like? And how do you do that to be able to, lead those people through that conversation?
Well, I got the opportunity many years ago. There's a lady who is the matriarch of a very, very successful family in Australia. And it was International Women's Day, and I was emceeing. So Guy emceeing International Women's Day, but that was a bit of the pain on it. And they wanted her to be their guest speaker. She doesn't do public speaking. She's a very private person. So her family is one of the wealthiest in the country, and she wouldn't speak. And I turned around, and I know her. And I said, how about if I interview you? Now, this is sales skills. All I'm doing is now they had a problem. I identified the solution. I offered it. And she said, yes, I know you, Rob. I trust you. I'll let you interview me. And so then I took her through the process for an hour and a half over a cup of coffee and a few cakes. And I made her feel relaxed. I made her feel exactly what you do with a customer. I made her feel confident, safe, and relaxed. And I got her to do the interview. She's never done one before, never done one after. And I got her on stage, and we did the most amazing interview. She felt as if she was in control. That's the most important thing, especially on stage. A lot of people are very nervous, in their words, which I hate that word. They're very wary. So when you can make a guest feel incredibly safe and incredibly relaxed, or say trust you, and you do not betray that trust, you can have the most amazing interview, the most amazing sales call. So we got her on. She had a great thing. The charity raised a whole heap of money, which is the most important thing that they were doing on the day, and everyone was happy. I've used sales skills to get myself out of precarious situations when you've come up against somebody who maybe is intoxicated or is having a very bad day. and is very agitated. And I did the opposite of mirroring. Like in sales, you mirror to get someone to build confidence. You don't do that when they're agitated. So if you go the other way, their energy sees that your energy is dropping and they start to drop, and you lower your voice and you talk slower. And without knowing it subconsciously, they start to do the same thing. And probably 9 out of 10 times, yeah, it's worked. It's never going to work every time. Anyone that tells you that there's a 100% sales course out there, I can do this is 100% going to guarantee you a winning every time, is bullshit, as we call it.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. But look, I look at it from, I go to my inner self and I say, if I'm standing on the other side, what do I want to see? What am I looking for? And then you do your best to say, well, I can't put myself on the customer's point of view. And that's outside of work. And I just say, well, this is what they're looking for. So I'll give them what they're looking for without going against my beliefs. Mm-hmm. And it brings them, and you still get the same situation, but you get a better result. Everyone walks out happy, and you didn't get your head knocked off in a bar late on a Friday night by some drunk who's 10 foot bigger than you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's really cool, because just like you said, I mean, how having that one skill has translated into so many other avenues. And that's what I always enjoy. And you can always tell when someone else is another salesperson, because, you just connect, they're relational, they know exactly how to lead a conversation, how to talk to people. Yep. And obviously those are attributes and intuition that just comes through experience. And then that's when you can take your level to the next level of your sales skills to the next level. Now, I'd also like to ask, when you're dialing this and you're having these conversations with someone, yep. Someone that wants to share a story, right? Yes. Like public speaking. Okay, you're an expert at public speaking. You're able to be out there and have that conversation. Yeah. How do you help those individuals get rid of the all those silent things, but also implement? And you have 30 minutes. 30 minutes is a long time. Slowing down, being intentional. I think it comes down to practice, but I'd love to get your response on it a little bit.
As we were talking off air before, I've been privileged to work with some top politicians, some top business leaders as their minder, and the person behind the scenes. And I watched, and so I learned the skill very easily. Made a lot of mistakes, but I remember I had a general manager at a place I was working at, and she was the loveliest lady. And she would go out on it. She'd ring you and say, "What are you doing tomorrow, Rob?" "Oh, I'm working. I'm over this area. Can I come out with you for half the day?" The general manager would put on plain clothes and come and do cold calling with me. And I thought that was awesome. She was a lovely lady. Put her on stage. Oh my gosh. Terrible. I counted 28 ums in under 1 minute. And what we do is rock like this. Terrible. And I felt so sorry for her, because she was a brilliant lady, but no one had ever taken the time to go and teach her how to do public speaking. First thing I do to people is never say you're nervous, never say you're terrified, and never say you're out there for a long time, because they're negative words in public speaking world. Turn around and say, I used to get them up in front of it when we're doing a class situation and say, "What do you think about public speaking?" They say, "I'm really nervous. I don't like doing this, blah, blah, blah." And we get them to stand down. And they say, "Do everyone?" Then we get them back up. "Now, I want you to change this. I'm excited about public speaking." And all of a sudden, their whole body language changes. I said, change the words, change the outcome. And they go, "Oh, okay." And then when we talk about, "Okay, now tell me for 30 seconds, what did you eat last night for dinner?" And then I say it straight after that. "Oh, I had this, I had this, I had this." "Oh, okay. What'd you do on the weekend?" "Oh, we did this, this, and this." You just gave a 3-minute speech. You didn't even know it. And they go, "Oh, I can do this." Yes, you can. Another thing we do is we get them to walk the stage, to own the stage. You talk to Tony Robbins, you talk to any of the best speakers in the world. You've got to own the stage. You've got to walk out confident. So if you have the opportunity, even if you're speaking at a wedding and you've got to give a speech, if you've got to do it next to a microphone, walk up and have a look at that microphone before. Walk onto that stage before anyone's there. Mm-hmm. Have a look around, because you're not going to be scared to something you've already walked onto. If you've never been out there, you're looking around for leads, you're looking around for where's Elliott and this. So owning the stage, you are your own brand. How you walk onto a stage, people will make their decision within 15 seconds what you're like. Mm-hmm. How you're dressed, how you speak, how you stand. Walk up, shoulders back, eyes out. It doesn't matter if your boots are shaking because it's your first TED Talk. No one cares. Right. And remember that no one in the audience knows if you stuff up. Only you. Mm-hmm. If you forget to say something, who cares? Yeah. And we eventually move them across to no notes, 4 points, and that people get really worried about that. But I get very naughty when I do that with people. But by the end of it, we can't shut them up. They're great.
That's awesome. Well, see, what I find so interesting, and I really want to foot stomp this a little bit for our audience, because sometimes many of our audience, they've been able to accomplish something great, right? And they've been able to produce incredible businesses. But I really want to emphasize what Robert is talking about, because see, if you're not able to articulate and share a good story, share your message, what happens is that message is diluted and you're not able to make the massive impact that you can, because what are people doing? They're I've done it. They're sitting there, oh, this guy is really not a good speaker. So you just automatically, your audience, you lost them. People start counting your ums and uhs and uhs and and then you totally lose everybody. And now only, out of 5,000 people, now only 3 people are listening. And it's so sad to see that. So the whole point is what Robert's talking about is so imperative, and those small intricate details, because, well, do you want to share, and do you want to leave a legacy, and do you want to make an impact? Because this is how to do it. You have to have a really good way of doing it. And so let's dive into this a little bit as well. Okay. So talking about, public speaking, and then obviously storytelling. I know facts and figures, analytical people, they love engineers. They love to talk about facts and figures and da-da-da-da. But also right now, I know in marketing, people love authenticity. And they love storytelling. Storytelling, subconsciously, it gets into the brain and people listen, and it's just remarkable how that works. So let's just talk a little bit about your experience and expertise behind both of those strategies to really, maximize at the fullest capacity, and how to properly tell a story.
Look, a story when you're on stage is no different to a play. Start, beginning, and an end, right? You've got the setup about what the story is all about. You got the middle, which is what is solving the problem that the audience there to listen. And the end is the result. So any story over 30 minutes, that's the basic. You have a character. You have a person who's part of that. And so the best thing I say to people, when you're telling a story, stories give what you're talking about credibility. You turn around and say, I ran across America in 3 days. Yeah. That's the truth. And then someone says, but while I was doing that, I ran into this lady who was on the side of the road, and she donated me her last $10 for the charity that I'm supporting. And it made the rest of my day feel fantastic. And you know what? I got more energy out of that day, and I finished my day target even quicker. Story. All of a sudden. And so you've got to make sure that when you're telling a story, you've practiced it, you've told some friends about it, but it's true. And it relates to what you're trying to say. And you said it from the heart. If it's something that's happened to you, or something that you know very well, you'll say it with passion without even thinking. You never make a story up. So the best thing is, if you can find the smallest story that is about your experience or your legacy, it validates what you're talking about. And quite often you'll have to shorten your speech, because you'll get so passionate about it, because you're telling and you're bringing people in. So what I say is to people, look for a story that reflects what your message is. So if your message is never give up, always keep going in business, never ever lower your standards, which is a lot of key business people, the best people do. Look for a story in your life that backs that up. And then just tell it, like you're at the pub or you're at a dinner. I was you guys in America over Thanksgiving, where you tell a story about something that happened in your day. Tell it no different. People pick it up when you try and make it up. So if you're standing there on stage in a boardroom, you tell the story exactly as you would tell your children at dinner that night. No different. And they will, man, it works every time. It brings the audience in. And then you pause at the important parts. It gives people to think. And a pause can be 15 seconds, but it pulls the power back to you because all of a sudden the focus goes back to you. You've got to be in a relaxed state when you do it. You've got to take a breath. People quite often walk on stage and forget to breathe. And they get dry mouth. Well, that's easy. Take a bit. And imagine you are then swallowing an orange. Because if you get dry mouth, you're not concentrating on the story. You're concentrating on, oh, this won't work, you know. And so relax, chill, take a breath, and then tell the story with all passion. And you'll get your audience every time. Every time it works. And if that story doesn't work as well as you want, think of another story that relates to what your legacy is. Change, be willing to pivot, just like in COVID. We've had to pivot on how we do business. You can tell a different story for the same legacy in every keynote speaker if you so desire. There's no rules. But you watch the best speakers. They tell personal stories. And it brings you in, it makes you feel as though you're their friend, even if you've never met them. And that's the best advice I can give someone.
My question, and let's talk a little bit further on this. When you're telling a story, and I've always known this, like when you really have to be analytical, but you kind of have to be, okay, what story am I going to tell? And what do, it's the same thing, like you said, writing a movie, right? Yeah, the movie individual, right, has to sit there and say, okay, what do I want my audience to experience during this part of the movie, right? And I guess that's the question you have to ask yourself when you're telling a story. What is it that you want your audience to experience when you're telling it, and slowing down and having that conversation and saying, okay, do you want them to feel anger? Do you want them to feel fear? Do you want them to be sad or joyful or just laughter? And my question, Robert, just from doing, and being an expert at this, what are some of the most powerful emotions that elicit action for your audience, that have you noticed that when you're realizing, okay, this is the best results, what are some of the most powerful emotions?
I would say honesty and vulnerability. You've got to know your audience first. Okay. You got to know who you're speaking to, but if you can be vulnerable with your audience and talk about a story that you may have stuffed up something, or someone made you feel incredibly humble, I'll tell you what, the audience will go get on that ride with you. And then, or something incredibly ecstatic, a huge win that you can actually they can see it in your body. It's extremes. So I believe vulnerability. I believe a little bit of sadness sometimes, but in context. When I do my charity work, I talk about children with cancer. And I take people on a high, and then I bring them back down very quickly, all within 5 minutes. And it's all fact. And then we bring them back again. So it's like a roller coaster. So I bring them in, get them going, and then I crash them completely. I absolutely trash them in 2 sentences. And they take from a high emotion to a low emotion. And then I build that in with, I'm here for those kids when this happens. This is what I experience. This is what they go through. And then I bring them up again high. So when you're being vulnerable with someone, you're being honest. And even in facts and figures, I mean, you're dealing with, say, accountants, traditionally accountants are boring old so-and-sos, but they're changing. So you're doing facts and figures and data, and they're very analytical. That's the way they are. And you can do the same. Say, talk about a spreadsheet or a budget that you totally stuffed up because you put the wrong figures in, or you didn't do this, or you didn't do that, or you didn't read the room and you put the wrong set of figures to the wrong audience, and they'll have a bit of laugh because you've embarrassed yourself in front of people. If you use the same emotions that the people in the audience are looking for, you've got them. But you've got to know your audience. You don't go talking about football to people who don't follow football. So you don't tell a football story to people who've never played it, who actually don't understand the game, because your emotions, you're not going to get a connection. You have to use emotions that connect you to the audience. So you do your research before you walk on stage or walk into a boardroom or room. The best thing I was taught was, who am I speaking to today, is the most important question anyone can ask. And then you make sure, and we've all got the stories inside of us that you can use to match the room you're in. You know, so it does take work, it does take practice, but I just say it again, match your emotions to the people that you're talking to, and they'll come along for the ride with you. But always finish on a positive. Never finish on a sad note. But you'll lose a room.
I love it. Yeah.
You lose a room.
I love it.
I've seen a speaker do it and crash and burn.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, gracious. And it's so powerful. And that's why I really appreciate you sharing that, because it's the small, intricate details that make the world. And as you can see, there's just so much more to it than just getting up there and just winging it. You really do have to be coming in with a plan and an idea. Yes. And obviously, where you're at, you can, because, well, you have so much experience and expertise. But at the beginning, it really does tell, okay, well, this story I can use in this circumstance, and this story I can use in this circumstance, and really dialing in those stories even. So I love the ones, you know, and specifically like some advertisements, right?
Yes.
You know, Super Bowl ads where they elicit emotion, and all there is background music, and there's no words. And sometimes that really kind of shares with you how, if you're able to really develop and dial in the right story, how powerful it can be if you emphasize in just the slow motion and the spots where you stop talking, and the emphasis and the wording and stuff like that. Now, let's talk a little bit about something, because you've got something very exciting that you're going to be doing here very quickly, which I really love. You got published in a book, so tell us a little bit about that, bud.
Well, I've been training people in sales for years, and everyone said to me, Rob, you can sell anything to anybody. And yes, I probably can use it for the charity, as you speak about, and it can be dangerous too if you want to not be a good person. But COVID, I thought, what am I going to do? I started my podcast up. I'll write a book. Nice. And so it's called The Sales Chain, Tips, Tools, and an Insider's View on the sales industry. And it's for people who don't understand salespeople. It's for people who are starting out in sales. Most of your books are high end, so they lose people. Most managers do not understand the salespeople. So we're launching hopefully the first week of December, fingers crossed with the publisher. I've got people from all over the world who have contributed chapters from different industries. There's a venture capitalist. There's a lady who teaches communications in Monaco. There's a real estate agent, all talking about sales from their point of view, because it's all different, but all the same. And so that's going to be a hoot. I'm going to absolutely love getting the book out there. First book, my wife is thinking, no, you're not writing any more books, because she's my editor. But we'll see. We'll see how this one goes. And I just want to help people so they enjoy it. I mean, sales is fun. I want managers to be able to understand the crazy people who are making the noise in the boardroom every Friday for their sales meeting, rather than just saying they're being noisy, they should be out selling. I just want to help people. That's the truth. That's where I come from. I didn't have the people help me. I just made the mistakes. I want to reverse that so they can go make their own mistakes, but not make the same ones I did. And that's the truth.
I love it. Yeah, that's huge. And obviously, where can they reach out, get that book, and obviously consume that content? Where can they reach out?
Look, it'll be on Amazon in America, and all the keynotes. I'll be promoting it on my LinkedIn, which on my Instagram, of course. Waiting for the cover, really, when it comes to publishing, you can't do anything until they give you a cover. And so we're having discussions, as you say, about the cover of a book, which is most important. It's no different to sales. People look at the cover and they'll decide whether they'll buy the book or not. They look at you or me when you walk in. They'll decide they're going to buy off us just by how we are and how we look. And that's the truth. So fingers crossed, in the next 2 weeks, I'll be able to have something out promoting it. That'll be on my website, robelliott.com.au. It'll be everywhere. And we'll have the pre-sales up and running so they can get it anywhere in the world.
Right on, right on, my guys. And that link, once that's all published and stuff like that, those links and everything will be actually in the description below, so you can obviously reach out to him and
Yep.
tell us a little bit about, like, obviously, your what are some of the big key things that you really want to have our audience take away? What are some last words of wisdom that you could share with our audience?
My mantra: just be you. It doesn't matter if you're the leader of the free world, if you're the guy packing the boxes, if you're a salesperson. Don't ever try and be anyone but you. People pick up on a fake very quickly. That doesn't mean we can't improve. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't turn around and say, I don't like that part of me. I'm going to change that and be a better person every day. Get up every day. Say, how can I do my job better than yesterday? How can I be a better person and serve my family first? But always be you. And if it doesn't sit comfortable when someone asks you to do something, goes against what you believe in yourself, don't do it, because you'll regret it. And I've done it. I thought a friend was a friend. I found out the way we were getting the sales leads was totally against what I believed. I walked away from the job. I walked away from the friendship, and it was the right decision. So just be you.
Wow. Tough decisions. Gracious. That's
It is.
awesome. And Robert, I really appreciate you just being on and sharing your expertise and really emphasizing foot stomping, how powerful public speaking is, and really sharing that message. Everybody has a story, but it's not just as easy as getting up on stage and just telling it. Just like you said, you got Tony Robbins, you got some of these presidents and politicians and businessmen and women, and even Ray Dalio, right? He's emphasized, really dialing in his stories, right, to be able to really tell them and explain them and talk to them and emphasize that messaging so you can impact and influence people. And Robert, Elliott, obviously you're an expert at it. I really appreciate your time being on here. And obviously those links will be on the description below. So thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it.
Mate, you stay safe over there and enjoy the Christmas break that's coming up soon.
You got it. Thank you. And guys, that is Journey with Christian D. Evans podcast. Until next time.